Well, we've made it to Friday, and I'm glad we have. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us here on the archives here on WCLU. We spend a few minutes and review the foundation, the solid bedrock of history that we have in our community, as harbored over at the South Central Kentucky Cultural Center, and as researched and explained by folks like Sam Terry, with the help of folks like Gail Berry, Debbie Pace, and others. Sam, how you doing Friday?
I'm well. How are you?
I think I'm doing good. I just have enjoyed the week. I've learned a lot. This has been an educational
It certainly has.
week in the archives. And I bet you today we're going to turn over a couple of other interesting stones. If you're ready to start. We've got 100 years ago an advertisement that appeared in the Glasgow Times. This advertisement was an ad for the Liberty Hotel Barber's Shop. J.W. Settle, the proprietor. Clean and sanitary. Ladies and children's hair bobbing a specialty. Come during the week to avoid the rush on Saturday.
Well, that makes sense.
Some good advice, in fact.
Get your hair bobbed.
Come on in for your hair bob. It's maybe like a mother-child hair bobbing thing there.
The rage of the 20s.
Those roughhousers in there on a Saturday, it wouldn't be a family-friendly place probably. 1934, Sam, we've got this story in the Glasgow Times about Jack Reynolds. He's a world champion middleweight wrestler, and he's going to wrestle in Glasgow Wednesday night. A resident of Cincinnati, Mr. Reynolds is one of the greatest wrestlers the game has ever known. His opponent will be the winner of the Pettigo-Parker flight of last week. That's the Pettigo-Parker flight of last week. Alvis Vaughn, local promoter, says the card will be one of the greatest ever booked.
Sounds exciting.
Well, I mean, it's pretty neat that Glasgow had its own local wrestling promoter, huh?
Well, that is. He also happened to be the father of Billy Vaughn.
Yeah, wasn't he a barber as well?
And he was a barber.
Well,
maybe he was bobbing hair.
He could have been,
also.
During the week at least. But actually, a Wednesday night wrestling card. How about that? And I guess they had that up at the Armory, maybe, probably.
Perhaps. I would think so.
That's where a lot of that wrestling cards happen. Anyway, pretty neat. 1944, we have news from New Salem in the paper about Mrs. R.O. Story. She was at the bedside of her brother, Mr. Huey Whitty, near Dutch Mill Village. Mrs. Norris Botts and baby, Sue Farrell, are visiting her father, Mr. Johnny Taylor, while Mrs. Taylor is at Cecilia. So it was a happening spot out there at New Salem.
Apparently.
And a lot of names that we recognize here, too. And just the way it ought to be out there in New Salem. 1954, we've got a woman suffering a heart attack in the news, and while suffering a heart attack, apparently she breaks her arm.
Oh, my.
It's a Temple Hill woman is in the clinic hospital after breaking her hip in a fall. Reports said that Mrs. C.L. Peden broke her hip in a fall at her home yesterday after suffering a heart attack. Mrs. Peden is the mother of clinic hospital night supervisor Rosie Lee Peden.
So perhaps we have a wrong headline.
That's
Maybe
right.
She broke her hip instead of her arm.
Surely humanity would see only one of those two at least. Instead of breaking your hip and your arm at the same time, bless her heart. And, that was long before the HIPAA laws. We could report anything we wanted to, I guess, about them. Can't, but anyway, everybody was feeling bad for sure.
And of course, you can go to the Cultural Center and the Military History exhibit and learn more about Rosie Lee Peden, who was one of our local young women involved in the efforts in World War II.
Quite a heritage there for sure. Some of the things that we ought not to take for granted. I guess I'll say it that way, Sam. 1964, classes resumed today at Metcalfe County High School after being closed on Thursday because of damage to the building caused by Wednesday night's storm. Yeah, we were getting into the spring, getting into the storm season, and some of those storms can be pretty rough. 1964, it was rough at Metcalfe County. 1974, we have some news, speaking of Metcalfe County, in the newspaper, in the Glasgow Republican, a very famous column written by Ms. Jasper Lincoln. And Ms. Lincoln writes in the Edmonton News the stories of calamities. Angelo Fancher of Center, whose tragic cave accident is well known, has been in the hospital. Mrs. Lee Young of Cedar Flat is suffering with her back as a result of a car accident. And Miss Jennifer Fudge of Breeding broke her ankle. And Mrs. G.H. Hurt killed an opossum in her hen house on the second Sunday.
That's a lot of calamities.
That's right. That's right. Good for Miss Hurt. She says, sorry, it's Sunday, I know, but no opossum is going to rip through my hen house. If I recall right, Miss Lincoln's column was always very newsy.
I believe, yes, it was.
Lots of fascinating things. 1984 in the news, the Harmony Homemakers met at the home of Joan Maugin, the vice president. Phyllis Howell called the meeting to order with 8 members present and 2 guests, Winnie Pons and Andy Couch. Some nice ladies there in
There
the
certainly are.
Harmony Homemakers, for sure. It was 1994 in the news that Norma John presented a concert to the Glasgow Musicale at the Lyra B. Mitchell Clubhouse. That facility has been used over and over again for wonderful music events.
It is, and what a wonderful musician Norma John is,
Yes.
and how much we appreciated her contributions to our community.
Yes, indeed. It was 2004. The Barren County Progress reports 4th Region basketball tournament starting March the 13th, with Glasgow taking on Warren Central, Barren County versus Bowling Green, Monroe County versus Franklin Simpson, and Logan County will meet Clinton County. And it will be certainly a big draw and a heavy attendance because of how much we love our basketball this time of the year. And it was 2014, Sam, a featured story, a sad story, about a young gentleman who lost his life. This was a feature story in the Barren County Progress about Justin Wilkerson. The feature story was entitled Soldier of Misfortune. And if you didn't get a chance to read that article written on young Justin Wilkerson, perhaps you can find a copy of it in the archives and learn more about that story, Sam.
It's a complicated and very sad story.
Indeed.
But one worth knowing about.
Indeed. All right, we'll put a wrap on the week. Got to say thank you to all the people who do the digging, folks who give us nice comments about the archives. And we encourage all of our listeners on this program to take the next step and come on down and walk into the front door at the South Central Kentucky Cultural Center, and you will be mesmerized by the wonderful exhibits that are put before you. Sam, have a good weekend.
You too, Henry.
We'll try on Monday again, okay?
I'll see you then.
Thank you, sir.